Okay, welcome back, and we'll continue our discussion of supply and demand. Now, this is not going to be easy, so strap in and put your thinking cap on because what we're about to talk about now, sometimes it takes a little while. It takes a little while to process. So, read about it in the book, watch some videos, watch my video, come to lecture, talk about it with your friends over coffee. But again. As we talked about before, one of the most difficult things to process is what happens to, like, say, demand or supply, but we'll talk about demand right now. What happens to demand with a change in price? And the short answer is nothing, okay? So when price changes, demand does not change, does not shift. And the way to illustrate that is, you have demand, you have P1, some price here, and at P1, based upon this demand curve, you have some quantity that corresponds to that, right? And then let's say the price increases. Now the law of demand tells us what? The law of demand tells us that as the price increases, what's going to decrease? Not demand, the quantity demanded. And sure enough, at this price, we have another quantity demanded, and it's a decrease. So the law of demand, of course, is an inverse. So with that change in price, what happened to the demand curve? Nothing. Nothing happened to the demand curve. So it's a fair question then to say, well, what will change, what will shift that demand curve? How does that demand curve shift? And that's what we're going to talk about now. So shifting demand curves. So shifting demand. There are 5 things I'm going to quickly talk about, and yeah, let's just get into it, okay? The most probably easiest one to remember, most common one, are tastes and preferences. So I'm going to just write tastes, but I'm going to say tastes and preferences. And you see this all of the time. In fact, this was kind of funny. A few years ago, I think it was J-Lo was hosting some New Year's show, and she mentioned something about liking hot tea, right? So here's the demand curve for whatever tea J-Lo said she likes. And we'll say that there's some price associated with some quantity. Okay, so on air, the she's J-Lo's talking about this tea. Well, what do you think happened the very next day? Sales of that tea skyrocketed through the roof. So what happened? Well, here's the best way to understand, right? Because JLo said she liked this tea, everybody else, well, I gotta have some of that tea too. So notice the price didn't change, but the quantity now all of a sudden changed because everybody was going out and buying this tea, right? And once you start, the way to understand a demand curve is that's an infinite number of prices associated with an infinite number of quantities. And so what happened is, in fact, the demand curve shifted, it increased. So here's my increase noise. Again, no change in price, the quantity demanded increase, and the demand curve shifts out and increases just based upon J-Lo saying she likes the tea. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. You can probably think of things that have become popular or faddish. You can think of things that have sort of lost popularity. When things lose popularity, right, the demand curve shifts the other way. So a rightward shift is an increase. A leftward shift is a decrease. And sure enough, demand will decrease. I don't know, Crocs, there are certain things that, based upon tastes and preferences, okay? So tastes and preferences are one of the big things that will shift demand. Another thing is the expectations of buyers. So if buyers anticipate that something may either not be available soon, they'll rush out and go buy it. If and again, I'm not going to redraw the same graph, but the same graph and the same dynamics apply. Demand will shift if everybody races out and goes and buys something because they think they're not going to be able to get it anymore. Or, another thing is, let's say that, for whatever reason, some expectation, you think that the market may be flooded with something, in the future, which may cause you to put off purchasing immediately, and so the quantity decreases. But expectations of buyers is another thing that will shift demand. Okay, now the number of buyers is a big one. We can talk about the demand for tacos right here in Denton, Texas, because what's happening to sweet little Denton? Everybody's moving here. And so, I don't know, we'll say the price of a taco is $2. And historically, that's resulted in some, I don't know what, let's say 100 tacos at $2, all right? And so, the demand curve, looks like that, or, historically has looked like that for buyers of tacos in Denton. But what's happening? Everybody's moving here. Well, assuming, ceteris paribus, everybody that moves here, let's say the population doubles and everybody likes tacos at the same rate. So now all of a sudden, at the same price, we're selling way more tacos because of the increased number of buyers, then it's the same dynamic. It increases and looks like that. I want to give you a decrease just because I've already drawn that on the board once. I don't know what the current status of Detroit is, but I do know that over the course from the 1950s to the 2000s, the Detroit area lost 1 million people. So 1 million people moved out of Detroit. So when you lose buyers, what happens? Well, your demand is going to decrease and shift to the left, and again at the same price, the number of, we're talking tacos now, is going to decrease based upon the number of buyers leaving an area. So that's what you would expect. Okay. All right. Next, we'll talk about income. Now, income is interesting, right? Because you would think it's pretty straightforward, and in a way it is. But in income, we talk about we have to talk about two different types of goods: a normal good and an inferior good. What's the difference? A normal good is a good that when your income increases, the demand for this good also increases. So you can, you think about it right now. I'm assuming most of you watching this video are poor college students. Okay, so you live on ramen and free meals from your friends. When you go home to a friend's house to eat dinner or whatever. But someday you'll graduate, you'll get that job, and your income will increase, right? So your income, you're making more money. So what kinds of things will your demand increase for? What kind of things will you buy, right? It's almost like back to tastes and preferences. You'll buy, maybe new clothes, right? Versus, otherwise, you may buy, brand name peanut butter, all of those things. A normal good, again, is just a good that when your income increases, the demand for that good also increases, versus an inferior good. An inferior good is one in which, when your income increases, your demand for that good decreases. And probably the most popular example is one I just mentioned, ramen noodles, right? Because ramen noodles are what you eat when you're a poor college student. But as soon as you start making money, you can afford to buy something a little bit, nicer than ramen noodles. And so your demand for ramen noodles shifts back to the left and decreases. Other examples might be store brand, right? You may be drinking Dr. Thunder now, but as soon as your income increases, your demand for Dr. Thunder goes down, and your demand for Dr. Pepper goes up, right? So that's what we're talking about there. And then finally, the fifth and final thing that will make demand shift around is price. Now you're going to say, "Oh, Mr. Dixon, you lied. You lied to me, Mr. Dixon. You said price never changes demand." Well, I didn't lie. That's true. Price never changes demand for whatever you're looking for, the category of product, good or services that you're looking for. But the price of related goods can have an effect, all right? And in this case, we have to talk about two types of related goods, right? Substitutes and complements. So, substitutes and complements. E, not I, for the complement. Okay, so a substitute is something that's used in lieu of or instead of, okay? And a complement is used with. So to get a better idea here, we've talked about all that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and erase. I'm going to erase this so I can draw it. So for a substitute, let's say we're talking about Coca-Cola. So our good that we're looking at is Coca-Cola. Okay, so if the price of Coca-Cola changes, right, the demand for Coke isn't going to change. The quantity demanded will, but demand will not change for Coke, okay? But let's look at a substitute, Pepsi. If the price of a substitute increases, what effect do you think that has on what you're looking at? Well, I'll give you the answer, right? If the price of a substitute increases, and then the demand for the whatever product you're looking for also increases. Because think about it, what's going to happen, okay? Here's the demand for Coke, and when you walk into the store, ceteris paribus, the only thing on the shelves is Coke and Pepsi. And you walk in, and compared to yesterday, the price of Pepsi has gone up, right? And so you're not going to buy any Pepsi, right? You're going to buy less Pepsi because the price has gone up. And so because you're going to buy less Pepsi, you're going to buy a higher quantity of Coke, again, at the same price. It's the same graph I've drawn twice already, and it causes the demand for Coca-Cola to go up, okay? So with substitutes, if the price increases, then the demand for the output you're looking for increases. Now let's talk about complements. So what's something that you use with Coca-Cola? I probably can't use alcohol, so let me change my let me change my example here, and we'll say peanut butter. Okay, so here's the demand for peanut butter. Okay, now a complement is one in which the it's a product category that's used with something. So what's everybody use with peanut butter? Jelly. Okay, so let's say what happens if the price of jelly increases. So the price of jelly, so you walk into the store and the price of jelly is increased. So ceteris paribus, what does that mean? That means you're going to buy less of a quantity, right, of jelly. And since you're buying less jelly, you're gonna buy, you don't need as much of what? Peanut butter. So it's gonna cause the demand for peanut butter to decrease. So with complements, as price increases, the demand for whatever you're looking at decreases. Okay? So yeah, those are the 5 things that will shift demand.